Hello, this is Kyle, also known as Alien Dude, today with two knives sent to me by my friend the Levin Lance for the purposes of basically showing them off, show his designs, and also showcase the work of the craftsman who made these knives, which was Gulzar Ahmed. So these are not my knives. They are going to be sent back to Nate, but I want to say thank you to him for letting me check them out because they are very cool. So I'm going to start with this pretty simple one. This is a Bowie knife, and this is kind of Nate's interpretation of what the first Bowie knife might have looked like. You'll notice it has almost no clip point here at all, which most people, when they see Bowie knife, they think of a clip point knife. Well, from what Nate showed me, the description of the original Bowie knife did not mention a clip point, and kind of his impression was it was pretty similar to a chef's knife, which, yeah, I can see the profile looks fairly chef knife-like. If you look at the thickness, that is definitely not the thickness of a chef's knife, though. That is very thick at the base, has a good amount of taper up to the tip, and also the tang tapers in a little bit. It has a fairly rough forge finish left on this back part, and then this part here right before the plunge grind. The sheath it came with is a pretty simple leather one. It fits in very nicely though, won't come out at all, and it's got a button here that you could hook it onto your belt pretty easily for pretty simple carry. The grip is 2 wood scales. They're nice dark wood. It has some pins that have a little bit of decoration. There's what looks like steel interior and then maybe like a brass exterior jacket to the pin. The tang has very, very slight ledges to it over the wood. This is very difficult to not have happen with an organic material like wood. It shrinks, it expands with the weather. So unless it is really, really well stabilized, you're generally going to have some slight ledges here and there, no matter how cleanly it was executed when it was first made. And just as a comparison, I have here the Vampire Killer Bowie that also designed by Nate, also made by Gulzar Ahmed. To me, it has a much more traditional Bowie look to it with a very large clip point, and overall just looks more like what I think of as a Bowie. But I do really like the simplicity of this one. It feels like both like a tool, but also as something that could be fought with very easily. The other knife here is something I would consider more in the vein of what the Levin Lance usually designs. It's got some fantastical elements to it with this double leaf blade kind of leaf blade. You could call it kind of a style of flamberge. It's definitely got a little more fantasy flair to it, and that carries through into the scabbard as well, which I'll start with. It's got the roses that are very typical of the Levin Lance's designs, a nice brass chape and locket, a very nice red color to it, and the fit is very good. It slides in very nicely. It has a really good tension right up here, and there's no rattle. It's never coming out, but it takes no effort to draw whatsoever. This is actually a really nice little scabbard. It is a bit beefy and chunky for a knife scabbard, but it does the job very well. The dagger has an antler grip, and it is just about cylindrical. I'll talk about that more when I talk about what it's like to handle this, but know that it is basically cylindrical, except that it does have a little bit of asymmetry and deviation based on the fact that it's very organic material. It's also got a little brass cap at the end, a brass ferrule here, and then a brass guard. There's a couple choils on the blade, but you can't really get your finger in there with how big and thick this guard is. I guess I could, but if I were to do this, these little corners here are sharp enough that I wouldn't feel safe doing that. So not really something I would do personally. The blade has a very nice polish to it, a little bit on the dull side of mirror. It's definitely a mirror polish, but it's a little duller. It's not super bright. Overall, it is a really attractive look, and I think it's a great looking dagger. So let's talk about cutting with these knives and test the edge first. So it was very sharp there, very clean cuts. What I will say is, due to the kind of odd blade geometry, the little peaks where it swells out are a little bit less sharp than the valleys. But that doesn't mean it can't cut, it just doesn't cut as smoothly in those areas. So cutting with this knife is a little bit interesting because it is a round grip. It's hard to get good edge alignment. If I could finger the guard into the choil, that would help with edge alignment. But as is, the best way I found to be able to really tell where the edge is to thumb the blade. But that kind of leads to odd cuts. It doesn't feel particularly natural in cutting like this, but it does help with edge alignment. In addition, this is a very pointy knife and very short and rigid, so it is an outstanding stabber. And when you're stabbing, you don't really care about the grip being round because you don't really need edge alignment. In addition, I feel like this is just perfectly designed to put the thumb on for stabbing or even driving it in like that. It's a very fierce knife. It cuts water bottles better than I was expected. I did some reverse edge cuts or reverse grip cuts, and I actually found those probably easier to do edge alignment than non-reverse normal grip. But regardless, it still cuts water bottles very, very well. Moving on to the Bowie. Very, very, very sharp. And you can see that in the cuts. This knife cuts water bottles like they're not there. Slices right through them with no effort, very clean, produces that really satisfying clean cut sound that you get on light water bottles. Just a lot of fun to cut with this. A pretty effective stabber too. I don't remember if I did any stabbing on camera, but it does work. And cutting, very effective. You can either thumb the spine like this to really have a lot of stability. You can do a hammer grip, kind of like a handshake grip. It's a very versatile knife that works in a lot of ways and is very effective in all of those ways. I think this is a ferocious knife, and it is light and quick. You can move it around very quickly and easily. This is a fighting knife. It feels like a fighting knife, and I'm reasonably confident that's exactly what Nate designed it as. That's one of the reasons he insisted on considerable tang taper as well as distal taper in the blade, is to make it lighter while still being very beefy at the base. So it works. This is a very fast and vicious knife. And that's pretty much wrapping up what I have to say about these two knives. I think they are both really cool examples of very different style knives. Personally, I like this one a little bit more for use. I really like the overall look of this one, although I'm not a huge fan of antler grips, although this one does feel very good. I did notice when I was cutting with it, as it got wet, it got a little, I don't want to say sticky, but it got a little grippier with the water, which was actually really nice. My hands naturally gripped it a little bit better after it got a little bit wet from sweat and water from the bottles. So overall, these are really cool knives. I don't know the exact price of either of them if you wanted to happen to get one of these, but I will put it up on screen. I'm sure Nate will be able to tell me. All right, real quickly, it would be $250 including shipping for the Dagger, and for the Bowie, it would be $150 including shipping. That price for the Bowie in particular is absolutely outrageously cheap. Make sure you check out the Levin Lance's YouTube channel where he posts videos about his various designs, and also check out Gulzar's Facebook page, which both of them are going to be linked in the description. Until next time, Alien Toot out.